So, hello and welcome to the 1% podcast. Today we have Jack Nugent on. Jack and I have been working together now for the last just over 12 months. We were talking about just before we hit record. By my account, Jack's been on quite the journey, both physically, mentally. The Jack I speak to today is in a different place than he was when we first spoke in an amazing way. And yes, I've got a program he's gone through, but more to the point, it's Jack who's done the work, and it's an incredible story. And I would say, fair to say, transformation over that journey. We're going to dig into that in a second. But before we do, Jack, you just want to introduce yourself, who you are, what do you do, a little bit about you?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me on. Been looking forward to this for a while.
Pleasure.
So, as you said, my name is Jack Nugent. I am 36. I am married, got a lovely wife called Sophie, and I have two children. One is 4, one is 2, and we also have a third on the way. So very exciting, very busy. Got a French bulldog called Reggie, and I work in the construction industry. I'm a director of 2 businesses. One is a carpentry contractor who works for the kind of big national house builders, and the second one works for kind of private clients where we do refurbs, kitchen extensions, lofts, etc., etc.
By all accounts, a very busy man then.
Yes, you could say that, mate. But obviously, kind of thanks to the program that I've been on with you and what the work we've kind of done, it's kind of all found its place. But yeah, listen, it's like life is hectic, and it's like everyone really. Everyone just goes through busy times, quiet spells, and things like that. But I wouldn't change it, mate. I wouldn't change it. It's great, especially 2 young kids, and I'm loving that.
You and me both. I mean, I've got this phrase like I say, I'd rather be busy than bored, right? And
Yeah,
the devil makes work for idle, especially for me. So I like it full
absolutely.
on. But I think it's being able to be full on and being able to manage it, not being crushed by it. And that's probably part
Yeah,
of this story as well, right? Well,
yeah.
that being said, then, Jack, why don't we kick off the conversation? I think the best place as any to start would be rewinding, say, around about 12 months into the past.
Yeah.
You'd maybe seen my bits on social media. You had some stuff going on as well. What was going off back then that made you decide to reach out, have a chat with someone like me?
Yeah. So if we rewind, it was kind of the back end of 2024, early 2025. There was just a lot going on with work. Um, one thing after another. It was just constant battling. The construction industry itself is a very difficult industry anyway to work in. A lot of high pressures, things like that. A lot of mental health that goes along with that and things like that. So it was just it was a very busy time. A lot of knocks that were happening. And the best way of kind of describing it was I kind of had this buzz at work, and then I would go home and I would still have the same buzz. It all became a blur, if you know what I mean. So I was just kind of going from work to home, from home to work, and it was all just kind of, my mind was just bogged down. 2 young kids, cost of living crisis, everything that everyone else was going through, but it was just kind of amplified with what I was going through at work. I think because um, the my I've always been pretty active physically. Played a lot of football, played a lot of sports. When I lived in Australia, which was many, many moons ago now, I got quite heavily into the gym and muscle and bodybuilding and things like that. And I think because of what I was going on at work, and then going home and dealing with 2 young kids and the wife and all the rest of it and the rigmaroles of life, I think the physical activity as well took a bit of a backseat, which, pile on the pounds. And I think what I've realized over the past year is that kind of what training does for me, not only physically, but mentally. So it was kind of the best way of describing it was just life became a big blur. That there was kind of everything was just fuzzy and stress, and bringing it home and then bringing it back to work and then bringing it back to home. And this just kept repeating and repeating and repeating. Obviously, as you said, I'd seen some of your posts on LinkedIn. I kind of liked the kind of no nonsense um, approach to kind of how you were dealing with your clients and coaching. Um, and then, yeah, kind of reached out to you. I think it was early 2025, and I think we set up a call, and then I think the program started probably late Feb, early March, I think.
Yeah. Um, and the rest is history, as they say, right? Well, we're gonna
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about that. But what you're describing there, Jack, not to belittle your situation where you were, I think like you said, it's a very common narrative. Which you got work, you got kids, you got what's going on, you got all other stresses within that, and it can sort of get a bit feeling like it's insurmountable. And this feeling of kind of fully on at work, no time to decompress, then fully on at home, and there's all the stresses there, and it can just feel like you're getting bashed from pillar to post, but not really having any way, feeling like there's no way out, but
Mhm.
also this constant feeling of pressure. And it can be quite difficult, right? And then if you layer into that as well, like you said there, not as much physical activity, and part of your identity is tied up with being fit, physically active and healthy, as you said. It creates kind of like this sort of situation, a milieu of just I just don't feel great, and I'm a bit stressed, and I can't see a way out. And it, I think what a lot of guys say is kind of like you can't quite see the wood for the trees, and it's like you're kind of aware that things don't feel right, but there isn't really a window or I guess it doesn't feel like there's a path out of it because you're, well, I can't see how this is getting less busy, and I can't be because life ain't going to get any less hectic. And so, how on earth am I meant to do this? And then you kind of have some of the compounding bad habits underneath that. So it just makes you sort of sitting there going, well, what the fuck am I meant to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, a lot of the guys, everything looked good on paper, and there wasn't really anything wrong, but
Mhm.
fundamentally something just wasn't quite right. And sometimes you do need everyone needs some help sometimes. And I thought the idea of a program to kind of give some structure might help. Um, but ultimately it was. As I was saying, I had work. I was doing, work was stressful, but doing well. We live in a nice house in West London. We went on nice holidays and things like that. But um, everything looked good, but I just didn't feel on top of everything. And I needed to create more clarity and more boundaries and more structure to all these little parts of my life. And I don't have many parts of my life because you know what it's like with young kids, the social scene kind of dips down that way a little bit. So, there's not loads and loads of layers to Jack these days. I'm quite quite a simple man. Um, but just needed some structure in there really to really kind of kick on and get to where I want to be as a person really and a father.
Yeah. Well, firstly, I can totally relate to what you said. I'm the same. Like, you look at your life on paper. I think I'm very practically. It's like, it's quite two dimensional, right? Then you got work and family and kids, and there's other bits. But that's it. And I think in the right way, that's totally cool. And it's a phase and season of life, right? We've both got young kids, and I believe like you're never going to be 85 going fucking hell. I wish I sent more emails. Was on my phone more. Said no one ever, right? So I think the point is we'll embrace that. But like you were saying there, this is this strange dichotomy I hear with, I'm probably saying every guy I speak to, right? Which is because the gents I speak to are usually doing pretty well for themselves, looking on paper, like business, work, career, all pretty good, got the nice stuff, car, house. I feel shit and I don't feel great. And like, I shouldn't, but I do. And I can't quite work out what or why. And then as you're starting to unpick it, and we can talk about this in a bit, it's that recognizing, well, probably haven't got quite the structure and habits and boundaries and ways to manage my headspace physically, mentally, emotionally. And so you sort of left reeling. And I think in that state, there's not a lot, it doesn't feel like, I'd say there's a perceived lack of agency. So it's like, I don't have agency to control or look at my situation. Or I feel like I don't anyway. Like, oh, well, I can get to work and do the things and I can be the best dad I'm trying to be. But like in taking care of myself and doing things that are important, I don't feel like I can control that. And that feels really stressful because if you don't feel like you've got agency, well, then it feels like life's kind of running away with you. Whereas what we're going to talk about, putting you back in the driving seat, I think has a profound effect on how you feel and how you show up. And then within that, I guess the self-esteem that then comes with, well, I'm making commitments to myself that I'm keeping, I'm putting structure in place, I'm, all those other things. I think that then creates a much more positive headspace. But if we kind of look at where you were and where most of the gents I speak to are, it's this weird thing of like, there's not one thing on fire, but just, globally, I just don't feel good. And I think it's that lack of routine, structure, headspace, to be able to just look after yourself first and foremost, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. So yeah, as you said, it was just kind of everything was good, everything was there on paper, but we just need to redefine it. And when your post, I think it was a couple of posts, kind of late 2024, Christmas time, it's just like, well, I like the sound of this. I like this guy's, cut of his jib. So it was just, it was kind of, I reached out and kind of went from there, really.
Well, let's kind of fast forward then to where we sit today, Jack. And there's been a lot of stuff happen in the last 12 months, right? Good, bad, ugly, as yourself and for everyone. Um, what's been your key learnings then? I guess having come through this journey of personal development for yourself as we sit today.
So I think if we kind of start, if we look at the beginning of the program, which is obviously the 8 week kind of blueprint, which is a very more structured kind of this is what you're doing week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. So I think it was just kind of starting small. building these very small incremental habits that would essentially made me feel a better person. So it was the early mornings, it was getting the training done, steps. I introduced intermittent fasting. I know obviously there was kind of a lot of emphasis on meditation and journaling and things like that. I'll be honest, the meditation, I just couldn't quite get with it. If some people do, some people get it, some people don't. I have, I've been doing journaling, not religiously, enough. I find it very helpful when there's some certain stress going on in my life and I feel very cloudy in judgment and things like that. That's when I find journaling very, very um, good to do, and jot down the thoughts and things like that. So it was, so again, like the structure began with kind of, this is what we're doing, it's early wake ups, it's get your training done, it's get your 10,000 steps in, it's do some reading, some intermittent fasting. So those small little daily habits, exponential growth, things like that, compounding effect, all kind of made me feel in a better place. I felt more present when I was at home. So I know we've obviously had discussions about kind of the phone and when to turn it off and when's the right time and things like that. And obviously there's technology out there that obviously I bought from your recommendation with the brick, being able to, essentially turn your iPhone into a brick, it shuts down the apps and things like that, which has been great. Definitely use it a couple of times a week in the situations when I know that I shouldn't be on my phone. And it is difficult, and I'm not perfect. There's still loads to do. But I think ultimately it's kind of the program, and we'll move on to the collective shortly. But the blueprint program kind of just was enabled me to kind of separate all these elements of my life. So I had work, then I had training, then I had my own personal reflective time and dealing with emotions. Because my wife will be the first one to say this, I'm not a big talker, communicator. If something's getting me down, I'm not one to say, look, this is how I'm feeling. That's just because, inherently men, they bottle it in, right? They keep it in.
You and
So
me both.
yeah, absolutely. So I think journaling has helped with that side of it. If something is really eating me in here and I can just jot it down, I feel like my communication has improved with the wife, and also with friends. I can pinpoint 3, 4, 5, 6 conversations in the last 12 months with friends, close friends that there's not a chance I would have had these conversations with kind of before joining this program. Whether it be about how I'm feeling or about how they're feeling, um, and I think one of the biggest takeaways from all of this, and I know we've spoke about this because you've kind of said you've been in the same situation as well, especially when it comes to being at home. Not every problem needs a solution. That was
Hmm.
always something that I thought I was pretty good at. You know, if one of the kids had a problem, we'll find a solution. If the missus had a bad day at work, well, let's find a solution. And it was the mindset kind of changed, to, I don't have to solve all these things. Sometimes I just need to listen and just be there for the people that need to talk. And I think it's because that I wasn't that person to communicate. I was always the one to kind of bottle it up. So once that kind of switch flicked, and I think Sophie she'll definitely say that the way that I handle situations is, in a much more calm, present. I don't need to, if she comes home from work and had a stressful day, I used to say, well, just quit, and that's not the right thing, right? That, there's the problem. That solution, that's not going to fix anything, is it? So when I kind of learned to be able to say, okay, well, let's take a step back here. What are the problems? Let's actually talk about it and actually essentially become a bit of a punching bag, really, because I know we've kind of used that phrase as well. Um, so, so all these things as part of the program has led me to become a better partner, a better husband. I think better in business. All these things. Um, so I've taken loads from it, mate. I really have taken loads from the program that will stick with me. Um, you know, the cold showers is another part of your program. I'm not doing it every day. I mean, but it is something that I'll do a couple of times a week, and it's more just a kind of a win for the day. If it's more of the mental thing, like saying, right, fuck this. No, I've had that cold shower. I've won the day, kind of thing. You're already off to a good foot. Um, so yeah, I think ultimately it's the program and has allowed to separate all those different items in my life. So training, work, mental, wife, relationships, parenting, things like that. And then kind of the best way of describing it is, just being more present, more calm, and just a mindset shift, just a real big mindset shift. I thought all the time you had to be really busy to be making progress. But actually, if you take a step back, jot some things down, do a bit of training, do a bit of planning, actually things become a lot more clarity. And another thing, as we moved from the blueprint to the collective, then I found what I took a lot from the program as well is actually the community kind of aspect of it, because there's a WhatsApp group with probably 35, 40 gents in it, and just being able to, not every day, but you can put down something in the WhatsApp group that you might be struggling with, or it might be professionally that you might need some help with, or it might be some recommendations. And all these guys that are in this program, we've all got different scenarios and different situations, but we're all in the same boat. We're all here for a reason. And I think what you've created in terms of a space where men feel comfortable in order to write. I mean, and the last 12 months, we've seen some very emotional messages in that WhatsApp group, and I've put some in there. And, for guys to actually put to guys that they've never met. I've never met anyone on this program. Or only via Zoom and Teams and all the rest of it. But you've created that space where men feel comfortable in order to share their problems. So, I've had some things that have gone on in 2025 that I may have handled differently previously. I'm not saying I'm anything special, because everyone has these problems, but I had a death of a grandparent that was pretty rapid. Cancer kind of took grip quite quickly, and that was a very rapid decline. And then obviously, me and Sophie, we miscarried in the summer in August, which obviously, again, I spoke to you in the chats about, and you guys offered some great tips and feedback, and you guys have some of the guys have been through this scenario, so it was good to hear from other people who had been through it. And I think that situation in particular, the miscarriage, was probably arguably the biggest thing that happened last year. I think being on the program allowed me to handle it in a different way than perhaps what I would have done. You know, Before, might sound bad, but I this time I allowed ourselves to, it is raw, and we did mourn, and we were sad, and there were tears and all the rest of it. And I think previously I might have just been a bit trying to fix the problem. Right, okay, this is what's happened, but let's just we'll brush it under the carpet and we'll try again. And that's not the right thing to handle, especially Sophie's a very sensitive person, definitely more sensitive than me. So I allowed her to be raw, to be sad, to be upset about it, and I was the same. And to be that punch bag, to be there for her, rather than creating a solution for everything, just being there for the family, really.
Mate, well, I mean, I think just the very fact that you're speaking about this openly today, it
Yeah.
just shows you how far you've come. You were right, and I mean that in a real positive way, because I think you've had some really tough stuff you've dealt with, and there's been highs and there's been lows, but that's a prime example, a really beautiful example, I think, of, look, we never wish anything like that on you in a million years. It's horrendous. Me and my wife went through the same thing a few years ago, but it's almost like, and this, I don't mean it in a weird way, an opportunity for you to show yourself, well, I can be different. I can be a better person in this scenario. And that's very much what you did. We had a conversation, you shared it in the group. And
Yeah.
what you said about the group thing is that it's not like we're all sitting around crying into our cornflakes or waving our knobs around saying it's all fantastic. It's just a place to be honest and transparent. And in sharing that, you feel better. Others learn from it, and so do you. And so you're able to take what is a very stressful, shit, unpleasant situation and get the most out of it. And like you said there, one of the key learnings, and I have to remind myself of this constantly, it's that sympathy, not solutions. Because sometimes your wife or your partner or your business partner or your kids, they don't need you to be the Mr. Fix it. I'm going to come and sort everything out. They just want to just be sad or upset. And your job there, just to be able to hold them in that space, is really powerful. But if we're just suddenly into let's try and sort it out mode, you don't do that, and inadvertently, not intentionally, but inadvertently, you belittle their feelings and emotions. I think we've discussed this a lot, Jack, and it's something. Excuse me, that I need to work on. It's always a work in progress, but I think allowing for that, I think it makes for a happier, richer life. Now, of course, that scenario wasn't happy, but like you were able to deal with it and process it. I think you shared with me that in a way, you became even closer almost because of that. But that's because you both went through it in quote unquote the right way. Does that make
Mm.
sense, mate? And I think
Yeah, yeah,
same with these other
absolutely.
scenarios.
Yeah, and I think with sorry, just to clarify on that whole, I think because at work, if there was a problem, I find a solution. So problem, 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 solution, 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 and I applied that to home before, but now that's probably been the biggest takeaway from all of this is how I handle situations depending on where I am, who I'm with. Is it a loved one? Is it in business? So that's probably been the biggest takeaway for me is being able to take a step back from a situation before looking for the solutions and actually understanding my audience, where I am, who I am, what the surroundings are, and then process it and deal with it from there.
And that thing you said about being objective, right? And you mentioned journaling as well, and some form of self reflection, right?
Yeah.
And also taking care of yourself physically and having better boundaries, and then the structure and having better habits. Like that version of Jack we're talking about that goes, well, hold up a second, what's needed here, right? Just let's take a beat. Isn't the Jack, and I'm just using that for that's had a drink, is hungover, knackered, tired, stressed on his phone. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I mean that for anyone, same with myself, right? Do I want to be, if I want to be objective when my 4-year-old's going ballistic and my wife's really upset and stressed about it, I don't want to walk in and scream my head off. But if I'm stressed out, I've been drinking every day, not taking care of myself, the likelihood of me being calm, objective, and going, hold up a second, what's going on and what's needed here, it's much diminished. And so there's kind of two parts. There's you take care of yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally, that puts you in a better state. So then when you're in these scenarios and situations, you can start to be a kind of a better version of yourself. And the fix it thing, I think I heard this on a podcast the other day, and I like it because it speaks to my bias, right? It confirms what I think.
Yeah.
But there was a lady talking about saying men want to fix, right?
Mm.
That's how we bond. It's like the problem, let's fix it. What are we going to do? Let's get around to it. And there's lots of agency, like I said. And so when your wife comes home and says, I'm on a stressful day at work, oh, well, quit your job. What are we going to do? Da, da, da. Like,
Yeah.
that's you're like, I don't like her. I'm sad. She doesn't feel good. I want to fix that problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? That's a
Absolutely.
positive thing.
Mm.
What she doesn't, but she doesn't want that problem fixing. What she wants to do most of the time is be pissed off, upset about it, and let you and be heard so she can process it herself.
Absolutely.
And so we have these situations where, why am I the bad guy? I'm just trying to fucking help. And
yeah, exactly.
but like,
yeah,
because you genuinely are trying to help, but it's not heard like that. But then always the way I like to think is, well, what agency do I have? What can I do? Well, actually, okay, well, I've now shown myself repeatedly approaching a situation like that doesn't work. So what can I do differently? And although it goes against what kind of we might want in a situation for your wife or someone else, well, then that's what they need. And so being able to be objective and then make the right decision in the moment, that's it. I mean, I've said this before with my wife, just to be clear, I'm not perfect with any of this by a country mile. I've had the conversation about this sometimes, like, you know what? I don't always know if it's a do you want me to listen situation or it's a is this a solutions conversation?
Yeah.
So I'll sometimes say, and you can't do this in the middle of an argument, by the way, because it doesn't work. But like if you go, I just say to Kate sometimes, is this one of those ones? Do you want me to shut up and listen, or do you want me to just sort of try to?
I've adopted that as well. I've adopted that, so it works.
Because and it's not done in a passive aggressive way. It's I genuinely don't always know. So help me.
Yeah, no,
But
exactly.
even that, being able to see that, that's saying to your loved one or whoever else, I care and I'm trying, and that's also important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and definitely the biggest takeaway is probably is more objective regarding situations. Because high stress at work, high stress at home. So just being able to take a step back. But it's just it's all that, it's all the habits, it's all the routines, isn't it? That plays into all of this, right? It's all one big moving part. And I think I've realized now in the past kind of year, having this kind of accountability when it comes to working out, is actually how good training actually is, not only for my physical health, but also kind of for like mental health and clarity. I remember there was couple of months ago, maybe I was ill or something like that, and I had 2 weeks off training. I just couldn't get up, couldn't do it, just couldn't get to the gym. And I remember messaging him about it. He said, "Look, take a step back. Let's not watch TV the night before. Okay, do some journaling. Let's do some reading. Let's set the alarm clock at a realistic time and just get to the gym. All you've got to do is get in there once, and you can start
Yeah.
building again." So when you do have these downtrends, sometimes it just takes a little reset. Let's go back to basics. I'm not going to stay till 10 o'clock watching shy TV on Netflix. I journaled that evening. I read some books. The alarm was set, and I hopped out of bed. Because sometimes you just need to take that step back. And when I do have those few days where I haven't trained and things like that, the lungs feel heavier, bit snappier at home and things like that. So definitely another takeaway for me is how important actually physical exercise is, not only for physical health but mental as well.
Yeah, I would 1000% agree, and I think for some reason I think that sometimes we sort of like disconnect. And I'm going to talk about work performance, but it's the same at home, right? But like you kind of almost disconnect. Well, I want to be focused at work. Well, what the hell's that got to do with being physically fit? Like, well, kind of everything, because to think that this and this aren't linked is just absolute and utter madness, right? And
Yeah.
so I've used an example before in another podcast, but like, especially you got version A, right? He snoozes his alarm 4 times. He's slightly hungover. Snaps at his missus because he's straight on his phone because he's pissed off. He's kind of snapping at his kids because they're trying to talk to him whilst he's on his phone still. Puts some clothes on that don't really fit. And he's rushing around, like races out the door just on time. He's just rammed a croissant in his mouth just to try and eat something. Misses the train and gets the next train and gets into work, walks for the door of the office or with his team, right?
Yeah.
That's version A. Now, version B, wakes up straight away from his alarm, jumped out of bed, done a little bit of stuff for himself, maybe thrown himself under the cold shower, a little bit of activity. Mrs. gets up, gives her a kiss, not on his phone straight away, giving the kids what they need, put some clothes on, feeling fit and strong because he's done some activity already. Maybe he's had breakfast, maybe he hasn't, but it's something healthy. Walks out the door on time, walks in through the door of the office. Which version of those is going to perform better?
Well,
Like, it's a fucking absolute and utter no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not just for work, but then play the same example throughout the day and then end your day and you walk through the door at home, or in the home office or whatever, right? Like, which version is going to be better? Well, of course it's version B, the guy who's taking care of himself. But I think sometimes we can almost be blind to that. There's a beautiful quote I read this morning, which is, I'm going to look it up so I don't get it wrong. But it was, let's have a look. And it speaks to this whole piece around like not having, thinking that not taking care of yourself isn't going to have an impact. And it was, you don't get results from work you didn't do. Stop complaining about the life you're not living from the lifestyle you're not living. Right? And so, like, if all your lifestyle habits aren't aligned, you're not going to feel good, be objective, be present, and do those things, are you? So, it's important that we take care of ourselves first and foremost. But then also the things we're talking about, a mindset shift and thinking about how you're part in it, and being present and being conscious around your decisions and being objective and all that stuff. That's all super important too. But I think it's really fucking hard to do that stuff if you're stressed, knackered, tired, fat, overweight. List goes on.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. I was just going to say, like, if we looked at it as a whole kind of package, the habits, the objectiveness, the situations, from my heaviest, I'm almost down 20 kilos. Not quite since I joined your program, but just as a whole, I think probably 7, 8, 9 with you since being on the program. Still got a few more to go, but work in progress, always a work in progress. So yeah, look, the program's been, you could say, life changing, really, because the kind of the habits and all these small incremental changes are just going to lead to a better version, which is obviously what you kind of your taglines is version 2.0 and things like that. So yeah, can't obviously recommend it enough. You did say my hair might grow back though, and that didn't happen, so I'm not too.
Yeah, I've mugged you off there, mate. Sorry. Yeah, lies.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure as well, mate. Like, something I say to everyone when I first speak to them, like, or I'll say, but then they may ask, well, Luke, when does this, your program not work? And I would say this applies to any form of coaching, but like, me specifically. And I say it's relatively rare. I'd say probably 2 or 3% of the people that join don't do well out of it. So all the social proof you see is definitely the tip of the iceberg, and then that's a fact. And so when does it not work? And it's when things, quote unquote, in inverted commas, go wrong, when life gives you the finger, when you have fucking shit life events that you're describing, or it impacts you and you can't do it, and you think like you fucked it all up, you put your hand up, you ask for help, and we talk about it. It's all you need to do. As long as we do that bit, we'll get you where you need to be, because that's actually where the magic is, right? There's the habits and the stuff, and there's the mindset exercises and being in this headspace. That's all fantastic. But we need to work on you and what's been tripping you up. And we get to that other stuff by proxy of going through the things when you fuck up. And so you actually learn through trying to change, making mistakes, and fucking messing it up. But that's actually where the most growth and change comes from, as we've discussed. Now, you have 1000% embraced that. Like, right from the off, there was stuff that happened. You've had big things, bad things. You've always put your hand up and gone, actually, this has happened. What do I do? Or what do I learn? And in doing that repeatedly, that's why you're sitting here today in a fucking awesome spot. Are you the finished article? No. Are you perfect? No. None of us are. But you're in a completely different place to where you were, but it's from doing that bit. And for me, that's the most powerful bit, because it teaches resilience. We learn, we grow, and we keep moving forward. And you fully embrace that, mate. And I know for a fact others on the journey who've been in the process have got huge amounts from you sharing, because it gives them license to share as well. So you should be really proud of what you achieved, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it, mate. You know, it's I'm not going well. Obviously, we've got still a few more weeks on the program, so just going to kind of keep getting stuck in with everything. And yeah, look, it's been a big change. It's been a big change, and a good one. And you know, I think it's going to allow me to kind of kick on and be the businessman I want to be the husband I want to be, and ultimately be the father I want to be.
Mate, 100%. I've got no doubt about that. Final question before we get off. If someone's sitting here listening to this, like perhaps they're in a similar sort of space to you were 12 months ago, maybe they're on the fence, they're like, well, and whether it's to work with me, Jack, or not, doesn't really matter, but just someone in that kind of headspace, knowing where you were and knowing where you are today, what would you say to someone like that that's kind of not feeling great, and iron, and doesn't know what to do?
Yeah, I'd say just take the plunge. I'd say just reach out and just even if it's a mate, just talk to someone. You know, it doesn't have to be a coach, but you know, when you do sign up to something like Luke's program, you are going to get, you know, constant support and some bread and butter basics that you need to go by in order to achieve what you want to achieve. And I think the key thing is that a lot of definitely men my age, middle age, you know, 30s, 40s, 50s, they'll probably be like, I'm not quite sure if I need to go on something like this. You know, I don't feel, you know, I'm not mentally, I'm not, you know, I'm not struggling with mental health, or I'm not struggling with this, but it's not quite right. So I'm not quite sure if I'm right for the program. Forget all that. If you think you can improve and become a better version of yourself, then I would say 100% reach out to Luke and the 1%.
Thank you, Jack. That's well, I would totally agree with you, but obviously I would because I'm biased. But it's you put that perfectly. Well, like I said, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. We'll have to get you on in another 12 months so we can do a recap when you've been out in the wild on your own and telling them what's in it, which we definitely will. And you'll have baby number 3 by then as well, which will be exciting.
Yes.
So, mate, it's been a pleasure talking. Really appreciate you coming on. So, thank you. If anyone is listening and they're interested about how I can help and what I could do with them at 1%, drop me a note in the comments or find me a DM. Otherwise, have a fantastic week, and we'll see you all next week. Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.